We're talking about bowel obstruction, something that's happening every day to a lot of people. We're going to go into why it's happening, what the mystery is, and I'm making garden potato dish on top of it, which is really fun. So I got some onions, grew those out of the garden, which is really awesome. Potatoes growing out of the garden. Dirt's still on them, so I got to give them a quick rinse is what I'm going to do. Good to see you guys. I thought I would come on, see how everybody's doing. We're talking about a couple of different things. We'll talk about bowel obstructions. I don't know if you guys are seeing it. A lot of people are getting belly aches. They're getting pain and cramping. Many are going to the emergency room. They're vomiting. They're having problems. And then they're being told, you got a bowel obstruction. Get ready for surgery. They stick a pipe down your throat. Then you got a pipe in your stomach and they're sucking air out is what they're doing. So you sit in a hospital bed for a day. You sit in the hospital bed for 2 days while you got a pipe down your throat sitting in your stomach and the pipe is sucking up air. And you're being told, we're going to run another MRI CAT scan. We're going to run another test right here. And we're going to see how that obstruction's doing. And you're like, oh my God. They say your obstruction's still there. So we have to do emergency surgery. And you go and you get a big part of the colon cut out. And you get that cut out and everything. And then they put you back together and they sew you up. You're in the hospital bed and like, okay, your bowel obstruction's better now. And what's happening is it's not a bowel obstruction. Maybe some people are getting bowel obstructions out there because they do, but there's this wave of chronic bowel obstructions. Hospitals are getting filled with people running in, getting bowel obstructions, and it's not happening. So that's you. So Sharon Lee Norton says, that's me. Thank you for covering this topic. Absolutely. This is a really important topic. We're going to talk about real bowel obstructions too, but these are the mysterious bowel obstructions people are getting diagnosed with that aren't real bowel obstructions because it's a bug going around, and it's a bug that is going around right now. People had the bug. 2 weeks later after the bug, boom, they get hit with this bowel obstruction. They're at the emergency room. So we're going to cover it in detail, but I got to get my food going. So I'm going to make a potato dish, just something quick thrown together. This is really cool. I got these patty pans right here out of the garden, which is really exciting, you guys. Good to see you guys coming on here. So I got these. These are straight out of the garden. Have you guys grown these before? These are so fun to grow. They grow so quick. The plants get so strong, right? And then these patty pans are so fun to pick. So great. Look at that. Is that crazy? I mean, the way they look, right? I love growing. Every year for years I've been growing those for so long now. I love it. We're going to throw that in the pan too. Onions, like I said, they came out of the garden. I cured them, right? So they're not fresh out of the garden. They're actually cured. They've been sitting around for a while, right? You got to watch out they don't mold up. You got to know how to cure them. Okay. Cilantro out of the garden too. How exciting is that, right? And then the potatoes I showed you, and I'm going to show you again. We're going to do a little rinse and wash. Good to see you guys coming on here. And peppers. Hot peppers out of the garden. Now, these are green, right? So I picked these early. See, I usually like to leave them red because green peppers are not ripe. And that's what gives people trouble. Unripe peppers, right? Unripe ones, and I talk about that all the time. But these are, see how it's almost turning red? And I'll show you some close-ups in a little bit too. I'll tell you why I picked them green to begin with, which is pretty funny because I don't usually do that. Picked them green for a reason. Because I had a bunny rabbit that was going after all the peppers. And I was like, how's that possible? Because those are hot. But, squirrels and bunny rabbits were really hungry. So we're live right now, you guys. We're live, and I'm excited. So let me just cook a little bit. We're going to talk about bowel obstructions as well. And we're going to do a little demo about that. Talk about the gut a little bit, too. So let's get going. Let's get some onions right here. So I'm going to cut some onions right now. I love when onions come out of the garden. It's really exciting. Everything that comes out of the garden always seems like it tastes the best, right? So that's what it always seems like. I'm going to put the garbage can right here too so I can drop some in there. And I like to save all that too and throw it in a pile and make some future dirt, right? So what I'm doing is I'm just getting a couple of onions ready here. Good to see you guys coming on. So we're live right now. I'm excited, making a garden vegetable potato dish. Why not? I'm kind of excited about that, right? I got the pan on right there. It's getting hot. Peeling back some onions. And we're going to talk about bowel obstructions at the same time. There's a lot of people have chronic bowel obstructions because they have Crohn's colitis. They have difficulties with their intestinal tract because they're inflamed. So inside their intestinal tract, they're inflamed. So as the food is moving through their intestinal tract, they're having mini obstructions all the time. There's a lot of people that have to live with that, and they have to go through that. Okay? And then there's that random acute bowel obstruction, right? It's acute, it's random. Okay? And we have those too out there. People do get a bowel obstruction. I'm going to talk about a couple of stories about that, how serious this could be. And then there's this mystery bowel obstruction that's not a bowel obstruction that's happening after someone gets a bug. So they're getting a bug. That bug either gets diagnosed as the flu, it gets diagnosed as the C word, it gets diagnosed as something like that, or a stomach bug, or diagnosed as food poisoning, right? And then everything's fine. It goes away. A couple weeks later, all is fine. They're back to work. They're back to life. And then they get stomach pain. And then they're like vomiting. Something's wrong. They go to the emergency room and they're like bowel obstruction. We're live right now at medicalmedium.com. So check this out, you guys. I'm streaming this live right now at medicalmedium.com, my website. So you guys got to check that out when you get a chance. That I'm streaming this on the website. How cool is that? So I'm really excited about. We're TikTok live right now too, you guys, just so you know. Nick Lewis on Facebook, good to see you. YouTube, or Nick Lewis on YouTube, right? Denise, you're on here, right? Lovely Leafy Greens is on there from YouTube. So let's just cut up some onions. Let's get them in the pan. The pan's getting hot, right? Is plant-based butter okay? That's a question. We can talk about that later too. So we're on Getter, we're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok. I mean, we're all over the place. We're on Twitch. Don't get me started with Twitch, right? Let's just get these in the pan. Don't get me started with Twitch. I mean, look, I haven't been on here in a while, so I'll keep it cool. I'll keep control. Keep that control. Because I don't want to start doing the Twitch dance right now. I want to get this meal going, really. So I'm cutting some onions. Came fresh out of the garden at one point, and then I cured these. They've been sitting around for a while. Good to see you guys. David Witchin, you want to see the Twitch dance? Okay. Melissa, do potatoes become toxic when they start to turn green? Yeah, don't eat them when they're green. That's not a good idea. Don't eat them when they're green. If it's all you got and it's the only food you have, you can peel back some of the green or all the green you see, right? But I don't eat green potatoes. So a lot of fruits and vegetables that that become toxic for a lot of different reasons. Just like when you have meat becomes toxic when it's brown. You know, when meat turns brown, you know what they do? They coat the meat, they coat beef with a chemical, right? A sulfur chemical. And that sulfur chemical keeps it from turning brown in the store. That's just really, that's not good. That's not good. Let's get some, everything has the potential of having a problem, right? So you got to know what to do, when to do, whatever. Throwing some onions in the pan. Let's get this cooking. Jennifer says, when in doubt, throw it out on Facebook right there. You guys, we're live right now. I'm going to put another onion in here. One more. Let's do that. Let's get another onion going. Guys, we're talking about bowel obstructions. I want to do a little demo real quick, too, about it. Right? So the emergency rooms for the last 6 to 8 weeks have been filling up with a lot of these mysterious bowel obstruction cases. It's usually a couple of weeks after they were sick with a cold, a flu, or the C, right? And then they get better, they're moving forward, and all of a sudden they get this bowel obstruction because that bug they had created inflammation in the colon, not allowing food to get through so easy, but yet it's not a bowel obstruction. It's just an inflamed area. And then what they do is they stick a pipe down your throat. Another thing this bug is doing is creating a neurological spasm, a vagus nerve spasm in the intestinal tract, locking it up, causing paralysis of the intestinal tract. So it's not really technically a bowel obstruction. There's a temporary paralysis and inflammation that's happening. And then what the sad part is, if they don't have a good doctor, if they don't have a good health practitioner that's looking out for them, they'll go and get the surgery. They'll get thrown into the surgery. So there's thousands of people across this country right now, and also other places around the world, that are getting bowel surgery and getting a piece of their colon removed for no reason, because they don't know it. At the emergency room and at the hospitals, they don't know that this is a bug going around causing temporary paralysis of the colon, and it's being misdiagnosed as a bowel obstruction. Now, don't get this confused with real bowel obstructions. People can have a real bowel obstruction. I've seen it happen throughout the years. Finally, he is back on, right, Ben? Over there on YouTube. So, I'm going to get some more stuff cooking in here. Let's get potatoes in there now. I'm going to give this potato rinse. Now, that's a garden potato right there. Let's see if we can take a look at it, maybe even get it close up. That's a garden potato right there, you guys. I'm actually proud of that potato because I've never grown a potato that big in my life. Out of all the potatoes I've grown, right? I've grown potatoes and they're really tiny. And they weren't supposed to be tiny. But this one's like unbelievably big. It's crazy. I'm just going to pop it in here, get a little water on it if you guys don't mind. I'm going to rinse off the dirt. It's got all the garden dirt on there. That's huge, right, Kim? You see that? Isn't that crazy? That's actually huge. So I got some onions frying up in the pan right now. Yeah, that potato is like crazy, right? Congratulations. Thank you. I'm honored. Thank you, Charlie. I'm totally honored right there that you actually congratulated me on that. That's really nice of you. So I just washed off this potato. There we go. And that's a red potato, right? You guys, not a sweet potato. You know it's not a sweet potato. It's a red potato. Let's cut it in half. Let's hope it's okay inside, right? Not bad. It actually is. We'll get a close-up, too, on that in a second. Just get these onions. Okay, there we go. Guys, that's the potato right there. A big old red potato, right? So let's chop it up. Let's get it on this pan. So I'm doing some smaller pieces. I'm not doing big hunks. I'm doing kind of smaller pieces, like thinner pieces. I want this to cook pretty quick. You know, too big and hunky, they're not going to cook that quick. You guys know, you have experience with this too. You guys ever do them in the pan like this, right? Medical medium style, or maybe your style, the way you do it in the pan. How about your style, right? Okay. If you guys just got on here live, we're talking about bowel obstructions. Listen, if you have Crohn's colitis, celiac Crohn's colitis, if you have any kind of IBS, if you have narrowing, if you have inflammation and swelling, if you have pockets, if you have megacolon, if you have something you've been diagnosed, diverticulitis, inflammation, diverticulosis, whatever, you could always get a small obstruction, temporary obstruction. A lot of people take laxatives, right? But we're talking about a mysterious obstruction. All right, we got this pan going right here. And I'm going to throw some squash in here now too, some patty pans. Let's do that. Good to see you guys. I'm glad I'm here with you. It's exciting. So I'm going to cut this patty pan in half like this. If Have you guys seen these? Right? Patty pan squash. I'm going to give this the same kind of thing. Just chop it up in pieces like this. I'm going to do it that way too. There's nice squares in here. And you can take like these, the butts on these are softer than other types of squashes. So if you want to keep that butt in there, you can. Same with the stem. That stem will cook if you cook it good. Now, if you're not going to cook these long, you want to take this little butt out right here if you're not going to cook that long. So take a look, you guys. See this? You want to get these out of here if you're not going to cook it that long and thoroughly, right? You want to take those out because they're kind of hard. And you got teeth problems, or you got a relative or somebody or a friend that comes over and they just had dental work done and they got 2 crowns all redone and everything, and you leave that in there, you never know, right? So I'm going to cut this patty pan in half like that. Right? This is great. I'm going to put the lid on that too in a moment. We're going to let that cook down. Look at that. I only put 1 potato in there, but it was 1 big potato. So, I mean, you can do 3 potatoes in there. You can do 4. You can do as many potatoes as you want in your dish. You can make it the way you want it, right? This is kind of a medley of stuff. All right. Let me do this. Make sure this is high on maximum. Put this lid on top, let that steam up and cook. Let's get down to it. We're going to throw some peppers in there in a little while. And the cilantro we're going to throw on last, which is really exciting. We'll do that too. So let's get into it a little bit. If you guys just got here, we're talking about bowel obstructions. There's mysterious bowel obstructions happening everywhere. Hospitals are getting filled with people. So let's go into this. I have personally saved a couple of people, old friends, been friends with for many years, got a hold of me and said, I'm in the hospital right now. I got a pipe down my throat in my stomach. They said I got a bowel obstruction, but I've never had a problem like that before. Okay, so here we go. So there's a new bug that's been going on. It's out there. It's been happening for about 2 months now, a little over 2 months. I think it's going to eventually get to the tail end pretty soon. There's a lot of different bugs floating around right now, a lot of different flus, so forth, and all that, right? And C's and all that. So there's a lot of that happening out there. So, but there's one of the bugs that's out there right now. It gets into people. They all of a sudden have congestion. They have the sinus problems, right? They have the fever. They don't feel good. Whoa, I got the flu. Maybe one time they'll get diagnosed with, oh, it's the C, or, oh, it's the flu, or doctor says it's a cold or feels like a cold. Then it goes away, right? They get it to go away. A week, meaning goes away naturally, whatever. Maybe they're doing some natural stuff to help it, whatever it is. And eventually, they're fine. They're out of the woods. Okay, I got over that. That's great. And all of a sudden, oh my God, what is this? What is this? And they're either vomiting or they're just in severe intestinal tract pain, cramping in the gut, and they don't understand what it is. Is this appendicitis? What is this? And they go to the emergency room, right? They get to the emergency room, and then the doctor says, we think it's an obstruction. We're going to do a test, and they get a test. They get the CAT scan, or an MRI. Usually it's a CAT scan with this, and that's one of the tests they do. Well, your CAT scan shows that you have an obstruction. Well, I don't know why. I've never had a problem. I didn't eat anything crazy. What's going on here? Well, you got an obstruction is what they say. And this is what's happening. All in these hospitals, all in this country and around the world are saying this. Doctor's like, you got an obstruction. And in the next room, you got an obstruction. I actually talked to somebody recently, an emergency room doctor who's a friend of mine, that said literally they had 3 rooms. They're like, 1 room over here, that's an obstruction. Then another person was diagnosed with an obstruction 3 rooms down. And then 1 room, and then they, another room, and then they rush them up in there and they get them ready. So what they do is they get told they got this obstruction. They get a pipe down their throat, right? And the pipe is to suck air out or any contents in the stomach. So that's what they're doing. So they put the pipe down. The pipe goes down into the stomach. And then the pipe is sitting there vacuuming It's vacuuming. So now you're in bed and you're stuck and you're like, what is this? I never had this problem before. I'm told I have an obstruction, and you got a pipe and it's down and it's sitting inside your stomach right here, and it's sucking air and it's sucking air. And that's what's happening. Stellini says, are these vegetables from your garden? Yes, they are. They actually are from my garden, which is just such a blessing, truly. All right, so let's go into this. The pipe sits in the stomach, and you sit there for a day or two while they run you through tests. And what they tell you is you're going to need surgery because we see the obstruction. It's on the test. It's on the scan. But what they're seeing is a lockup. Yeah, it's not an obstruction, but they're seeing fecal matter in an area that has temporary paralysis. That's what they're seeing. All right, for all these random cases, all these random mystery cases. It's not somebody who's known to have obstructions throughout their life. They've had multiple surgeries. They got a tremendous amount of scar tissue, and they get obstructions periodically. That's different. Or someone who gets a kink, someone who actually gets a kink in the intestinal tract, where they actually get a kink. And when that kink happens, then they're in trouble and they have to get surgery. If it can't work itself out, they need to get surgery. Now, that's different. Now, that happens out there. I see a lot of people get kinks in their colon. They get kinks in their small intestinal tract, and that's what goes on, right? But this is different. This is temporary paralysis of a certain area of the colon or intestinal tract because the nerves going to that stop working because the bug that's going around in the last couple of months is seizing up the nerve in that area. And then inflammation also occurs in that area too. The bug can do two things. It attacks the nerves in that area or inflames that area of the intestinal tract. And then that swelling happens, just enough swelling along with paralysis that food's not moving through too easy. But the symptom isn't just because of that. The symptom is it's a delayed reaction this bug has. Elizabeth says, I knew it was all viral. Yeah, it is. It's happening out there all the time. So really, they're having a viral infection causing temporary paralysis of the intestinal tract or colon, okay? And then they're getting misdiagnosed with bowel obstruction, and they're getting their colons removed. Now, here's the thing. If you're somebody that had a C-section, so say you're a woman, you had a C-section, and, during your pregnancy, you had the C-section. If that happened, they'll blame the scar tissue from your C-section as this bowel obstruction. Say you're somebody that had a hernia surgery. So if anybody had any kind of hernia surgery, regardless of the hernia surgery, wherever it is, if it was a hernia to the left, if it was a hernia to the right, if it was a hernia in the middle, wherever the hernia was, if they did a previous hernia surgery, they'll then tell the patient that the scar tissue from the hernia surgery they had 20 years ago over here is why they have a bowel obstruction over here. That's what they're told. They're told the bowel obstruction is because of scar tissue from a hernia surgery that's somewhere else. Now, I'm seeing this out there happening where people I had a hernia 30 years ago, they'll say to the doctor, and they'll say, well, that hernia scar tissue down here is the reason why you have bowel obstruction over here. So we're going to need surgery now and get that bowel obstruction fixed. So that's what's going on right now. I'm just going to move this guy over a little bit and just make sure this is cooking up. So I put the lid on the pan. It gets the moisture from the squash is actually moving, helping everything stay moist so nothing's burning in the pan. The onion, the moisture from the onion is actually helping too. And then I have that potato, that garden potato with this garden squash, garden onions. I have it all in the process of kind of steaming up and cooking. I have this little portable burner. I got it on maximum right now. Now, there are people that actually have Crohn's, colitis. They have large amounts of inflammation inside the intestinal tract and inside the colon. And so they have a narrowing. And if they eat something problematic, you can have a problem. I remember a long time ago, a doctor sent a patient to me that had that type of inflammation, that type of swelling inside the intestinal tract. And the patient already had a surgery. The surgery happened because they had a cheeseburger at a cookout really tough meat in the cheeseburger. That's what they said. It was a big, large cheeseburger at a cookout. And this isn't anti-animal protein, anti-vegan. That's not what this is about. I'm just giving you guys this person's experience, right? And she said that she had the burger, and then that night she had the vomiting, she had the pain, and she had a real obstruction. That meat was stuck. So it was stuck, the gristle and the beef in the gristle, and that it wasn't really a soft beef. It wasn't tender, and that gristle and that beef, it just all kind of locked up by a spot that the person was already inflamed. And so that became a real obstruction, so they had to get surgery. So they had to get a piece of the colon cut out. They had to get the obstruction fixed, right? They had to get the obstruction removed. And so I've known many stories over the years that are something similar to this, but this is different than what's happening right now. So here's the interesting thing. You think that this would set off an alarm out there so people would know, so they're not getting their colons, intestinal tracts being cut out right now for no reason with a misdiagnosis of bowel obstruction, when really it's left over from a viral infection, creating temporary paralysis of the colon and small intestinal tract. You think that the alarm would get set off. Like, don't you think it would be a little suspicious now? Every single hospital has people pouring in with the bowel obstruction diagnosis. Meanwhile, they're lining up colon surgeons and they're just cutting people's colons out for this mysterious bowel obstruction problem. You think they would kind of put two and two together and be like, whoa, something's wrong here. Why is everybody having a bowel obstruction? How come the hospital had 30 bowel obstructions just last night? How come this hospital down the road had another 10? How about this hospital over here? Shouldn't they communicate with each other? No, they don't. And this is how medicine works these days and always has in the past. No communication. Doesn't matter what happens to people, and who cares? That's how it's always been in medicine, the world of medicine. So right now, people are getting, for no reason, their bowels cut out from a viral infection that's just creating temporary paralysis and inflammation in the colon and small intestinal tract. Now, with that being said, if you're somebody, though, right, that you have a lot of intestinal tract problems, and you've been known to have severe constipation from blockages, that could be an entirely different story. If you're somebody that's known to have in your life severe constipation to the point where you don't go to the bathroom for a week or so and it gets blocked up and you have obstructions of fecal matter, that's different. And you're usually taking laxatives or taking prescription laxatives and you're dealing with lots of doctor visits. That's a different story than someone who hasn't had any problems at all with any of this. And that's what's happening. The hospitals are being filled up all around this country and around the world with people coming in that never had a problem at all with their intestinal tract or colon or any issues to that degree. Maybe they had a little bit of bloating. Maybe they have a little digestive weakness. Maybe they have something else going on, right? Or something like H. pylori or whatever it is. But they never had something serious, and then they get this bowel obstruction a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks later, or 1 week later after they had a cold. And that cold was a virus. That virus going around wasn't a cold per se. Arlene says, my daughter that has celiac ended up in the emergency room with this throwing up. Well, that's what it is. They end up in the emergency room throwing up. That's how it works. And as they're in the emergency throwing up, right now, what the standard protocol in the emergency room is, they admit you into the hospital, they stick a pipe down your throat into your stomach, and they just suck up and vacuum any contents and any air for the next 2 days while they prep you for surgery. So you're going to take a look here. Michelle L., good to see you. Why do stomach nerves affect nerves in my feet, though? Well, you know, the problem is with nerves is they tend to all somewhat connect to each other no matter what, and they all end up in the central nervous system, which is your brain. So in the end, they all have the same route going to the brain one way or another. So all nerves connect to another nerve, which connects to another nerve that ends up somewhere finding its way to the brain. And that's why, because, you know, and if you have other nerve sensitivities from inflammation in other areas, like some type of neuropathy or any kind of nerve sensations, nerve damage, nerve issues of any kind, or just inflamed nerves from neurotoxins and stuff like that. Anytime your nerves get inflamed, other nerves can hurt too in other places. It's very, difficult for a lot of people that deal with it. I want to show you right here a close-up on this dish right here too, you guys. So what I'm doing is I'm cooking these garden potatoes, right? Patty pan squash, onions. I'm going to throw a pepper in there a little bit. I want to keep on steaming this up a little bit too. Get it going. Got it on high heat. Talking about bowel obstructions. Rosita, when I eat potatoes, my belly swells. I have ulcerative colitis, right? So what I tell people, and I talk to doctors a lot, helping them with their patients, is that what's on the potato? Like, what's on it? Was it sour cream? Was it mayonnaise? Was it oil? Was it any kind of fat, like an oil-based fat? Was it with an animal fat? Was it with any kind of animal fat? Did it have lard on it? Was it fried? Did it have any kind of other oil or fat in there? So that's another thing too. Did it have milk, cheese, butter? Did it have cream? Did your potato have milk, cheese, butter, cream, or anything like that? Right? Did it have any of that going on? Because that's what makes it really hard. Did you have your potato with bread, which was gluten-based bread? Did you have anything like that too? What did you eat that day as well? So what did you eat that day as well? So all kinds of things matter. Ulcerative colitis, right, means you have problems with a lot of foods too. So it's not just potato. So if you eat potato and your belly swells, but the belly could be swelling for the thing you ate that morning, or the thing you ate the day before, or 2 to 3 days before. Someone can have a piece of gluten bread a week before and get swelling a week later because the gluten stays in the system and then it feeds all the critters. So that's what happens. Milk, cheese, butter, eggs, any of that will stay in the intestinal tract long term and then will feed any kind of critter you got going on. E. coli, salmonella, right? H. pylori, C. diff, streptococcus. So these critters, right? They sit inside the intestinal tract. They sit inside the colon. And when we have ulcerative colitis, you guys know, if you know medical medium information, ulcerative colitis is what critter? Like, what bug is the bug with ulcerative colitis? That bug is shingles virus. The shingles virus is inside the colon if you have ulcerative colitis. It's inflaming the colon, and that's why the blood vessels break and the bleeding occurs. The rupturing of the blood vessels occur. It's from the shingles virus right here. So the shingles virus sits inside the colon, okay, makes a camp there for many years, and that becomes ulcerative colitis. So the shingles virus, if you guys know medical medium information, the shingles virus loves what? Milk, cheese, butter, even some soy. It likes, soy can feed it. But milk, cheese, butter, and gluten, right? You can learn about colitis in here. How many of you guys have the Cleanse to Heal book? Here it is right here. Christina S. says, how long will this paralysis last? Will it do away on its own? Yes, it does do away on its own. It does. So I don't know if you guys have seen these. These are the manuscripts. I know you guys already probably pre-ordered it. It's the Brain Saver book, right? These two books are coming out in just a few months, just letting you know. It's Amazon.com US. That's the Brain Saver Protocols. That's the Brain Saver right here, book right here. Two incredible books. They're over 600 pages each, and they're packed with information that's mind-blowing. Over 300 symptoms, conditions. I haven't talked about the books in a while, and I still want to talk about them in more detail eventually, as we get through. But check out the Brain Saver books when you get a chance. Those books right there will blow your mind. You'll have more information that's mind-blowing. It'll be really insane. Christina S. says, how long will this paralysis last? Will it go away on its own, was the question before. Yes, tends to last for a couple of days. Some people it lasts for a day. Some people it's 2 days. Some people it's 3 days. And then it starts to ease off and you start to recover, and what a lot of people do, they'll sit in the hospital. If they have a smart doctor, the doctor will be like, well, you know what? We're not going to cut that person's colon out. We're going to just give it time. And then they watch the symptoms. They watch if the patient is feeling better. They watch if the patient's in less pain. they'll take the patient off of pain medication, and they'll say, well, how are you feeling today? I know one person specifically said, you know what, I'm out of here. I was in there with the pipe down into my stomach. I was in there for a day, and I started feeling better, and I wanted out. And they just ripped the pipe out, and they took the pipe out, and they said, I need out of here. But yet, they were getting prepped for surgery. They were actually getting prepped for surgery, which they didn't need. So yes, it tends to move on its own. Get this little critter off of here for now. I want to chop up a pepper out of the garden here. Art says, all the starch in the potatoes and squash in that dish you're cooking, doesn't that promote feed yeast and fungal overgrowth? Well, the information that you have that it does is misinformation. So milk, cheese, butter, eggs, gluten feed all manners of bugs. And here's the funny thing. You're actually using medical medium information by saying that. No one knew anything fed off of anything. That's medical medium information. So nobody thought bugs feed. Nobody believed viruses feed off of anything. They still don't. Science still doesn't. But that's medical medium information. There's no science study that shows bugs actually feeding off of a potato, because there never was. And there never will be. A bug can't feed off of a potato, but a bug can feed off of gluten, but they don't have any tests showing that out there, studies showing that either, because it's medical medium information. So what you're saying is, doesn't that starch feed any kind of bugs like yeast and fungus and stuff and other things? And what you're saying is, I'm going to tell you, medical medium, I'm going to ask you a question, that is your information, medical medium, because nobody knew anything fed on anything. So you heard it from somewhere else, and heard it from somewhere else, and heard it from somewhere else, and they twisted it up. And now they're saying that will feed on this when it doesn't feed on this. The whole concept of critters feeding on a food or eating is medical medium information. But I appreciate the question. It's fun to watch your own information come back to you. It comes back to you skewed, twisted up, but it still comes back, right? It still comes back to me, which is fun to see it come back. But it's sad at the same time, because you see that information come back twisted up. It's like twisted up and used against the very foods you're making, right? So here I am, the guy that put the information out there about how all these bugs feed on food, and they actually eat, right? So that's medical medium information. I go into great depths about that in the Brain Saver books. And here I am, right? Being told by someone, how isn't that going to feed bugs? Yeah. Being the person that put the information out there to begin with, I'm not going to be serving you guys a meal that will feed the bugs. Michelle L. said, this information saves so many lives, AW. Thank you. But anyway, I'm happy you're asking that question, by the way. Does it feed anything? So let's talk about that. If you eat gluten, gluten will feed those bugs. Nobody knew that. You guys have to remember, all the Eat Better authors or Eat Better books and Eat Better doctors and all that, all they knew was to eat better, and they only believed that processed food would give you heart disease, cardiovascular problems. That's all that they had, right? Medical medium information brought the truth out that gluten actually feeds bugs. It'll feed viruses and pathogens and bacteria. And same thing with virus, same thing with... So, and medical medium information goes back decades. Nobody knew gluten fed anything. Only medical medium information talked about that. And so with that, it's like, what does these bacteria and microbes that are not beneficial, what do they feed off of? Milk, cheese, butter. They feed off of eggs. Okay. They feed off of corn too. You got to be really careful. Now listen, if you guys are growing some fresh organic corn out of your own garden, or you go to a farmer's market and you get some fresh organic corn, right, somewhere, you can have some, right? You can have some if you're not suffering with a lot of different conditions. If you don't have chronic illness or something, you're not dealing with a lot of chronic illness, like so many people I see out there have. You can do some fresh corn right out of farmer's market. Just beautiful corn that's organic. And you want to eat it raw right off the cob, or you want to steam it and have it that way. That's not the end of the world. But don't do corn products if you're somebody that's really has any kind of autoimmune condition, any kind of issue on any level. Don't do any kind of like cornstarch and corn products and you know, all that stuff, cornbread and everything else. Sarah Vasadi says, is the vacuum of the stomach needed for the person to improve, or can a protocol be done at home versus the ER? Yes, protocol can be done. Always ask your doctor. So Sarah, make sure you talk to your doctor. But yes, if it was me, I would try to do a protocol at home, and I would try to avoid the vacuum pipe going down through my stomach into your stomach, because I know that wouldn't be what you needed. They do that because they're trying to get air out, right? Is what they're doing. But being that it's not a true obstruction and just a paralysis, you don't need the pipe. But always ask your doctor, no matter what, whatever condition you're in, right? So I got a pepper in here. I'm going to put cilantro in here. That's going to be the last thing to top it off. And then we're going to do that in a minute. So let me just get this back on top. Someone's asking on YouTube, New Era. Okay, please tell about inflammation of the thyroid. Please tell. I got a whole book on it. Groundbreaking at the time. Talking about the Epstein-Barr virus creating thyroid problems, original medical medium information. You know, it's hard when you sound like a broken record. When you put this stuff out for the first time out in the world that Epstein-Barr creates thyroiditis, and then years later, science and research is like, we think Epstein-Barr is now linked to the thyroid. Really? Where'd you get it? There's no study out there. You got it from the medical medium book. Millions of copies sold right here. They're backdating too now, so they're tricking people out. They're backdating stuff. That's what they do. It's amazing what the medical industry will do. They'll do anything to try to prove that they were smart when that's not the case. Thyroid Healing Book has saved a lot of lives around the world. Guys, got to check it out when you get a chance. Amazon.com. If you're talking about thyroiditis, thyroid inflammation, any of that, it's an incredible book. It's helped out so many people. You guys know about Liver Rescue. Liver Rescue is a book to read too. Check that out when you get a chance. All the books. And then the Brain Saver books that are coming out this year. You guys, when you read this, your mind is going to be blown. Like blown. Guys, making a garden vegetable dish right here. It's over 300 symptoms, conditions in the Brain Saver book. Mental health. Okay. So, incredible. And there's 2 books. So, you got to get both. You got to order both. 2 over 600 page books. Check them out. Amazon.com, right? When you get a chance. And Barnes & Noble. Check them out. You can order them off Barnes & Noble as well. Okay. It was supposed to be 1 book, but it was a 1,400 page book. And my publisher said, how are we going to print that? It's not possible. So we turned it into 2 books. It's incredible. Over 100 recipes for the brain, 300 symptoms, conditions, and protocols. These are insane books, man. Adele says, my mind is blown with all your books. Incredible. I'm just glad you're here. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Check out those Brain Saver books, you guys, when you get a chance. You know, remember, if you pre-order it now, you don't get charged for it until the book is shipped, till the books are shipped. You don't get charged for it. And you get the lower price in the end, right? The link is in the profile right there on TikTok. Link is in the description, you guys. So I think our dish is coming to a point. We talked about bowel obstructions a little bit. Now we're going to just chop up some cilantro and throw it in here. So we'll do that. We'll get a close-up on the cilantro real quick, too. Yep. Chop up some cilantro. I like to throw it on at the end, so it's kind of nice and green and fluffy and fresh. Right? Pop open the lid. Get our cilantro in. Okay, I'm gonna move this around. There we go. Got the fresh cilantro in there. Garden potato. We got the patty pan squash and the onion. Now you can season it any way you want. Right? Let's plate it up, you guys. Let's do that. I'm hungry. Get a plate going. And you guys, you know what? I'm going live on Instagram, TikTok, and Telegram in just a little while. So hope you guys stick around. That's the dish right here. I'll give you a close-up on the dish. You guys can see, right? All right, we're going live. I'm going to have you guys live again. It's just going to be a couple of minutes. Just let me straight out in the kitchen. I'm going to make this dish all over again. Pianist Daniel Fritzen says, no, it isn't medical medium information. We did know that sugar, for example, feeds candida. 35 plus years of medical medium information and work. We didn't know that. That was lectures, working on over 250,000 individuals, doctors, practitioners. The health movement was this big 35 years ago, and nobody knew anything, ate anything. So pianist, not true. And guess what? To prove that, medical medium information was the first to say gluten actually fed a bug. And there's no study showing anywhere, anyhow, that any of that eats anything. So there's no study showing that. Then where would somebody have gotten the information? Okay, we'll go into detail about it in the next live coming up, and I can't wait. It's going to be fun. We'll cover that too. We're going to cover that into detail. You guys, I still have more here. I got it right here. You can even put some fresh stuff on top, like this. You can do garlic in this dish. You can do anything you want. And I'm going to get a fork out real quick. And we're going to be live in just a few minutes. We're going to do it all over again. Garden potato. That's insane, that red potato. Patty pan squash. Wow. Guess what? That pepper is really hot. If you guys don't like it that spicy, don't put a hot pepper in there. Off the chart. Yeah, out of control. You guys, I love you. I'm going to go live again in a little bit. I'll catch you.